Good afternoon, Poe fans. Welcome back to Review Morgue. Jeanie, how are you on this fine, beautiful day?
I'm wonderful. The weather is beautiful. It's
Yes.
extremely hot. It's just, I'm glad I'm inside. Um,
Yes. Oh,
and it's just
no.
another wonderful day of being alive. Yay!
Absolutely. It was a great day to watch a movie.
Yeah. It would have been, if it would have been if you could watch a movie that was worth watching. Okay.
Oh, goodness. All right.
Yeah,
Well, let's get right to it. So,
absolutely.
the movie we reviewed this month was The Mystery of Marie Roget, which we know was Poe's second Auguste Dupin's second tale, and Poe wrote it in 1842. What is wrong with me today?
No idea.
Yes,
It's just one of those things. Hey,
1842.
pretty cool. Mhm.
Yes.
Which is
And
ironic considering this movie was produced and released in 1942.
exactly. And from watching this, because in any kind of information I was looking for, it didn't really say this, but when Dupin is introduced, he is introduced as the solver of the murders in the Rue Morgue. So basically, it appeared that Universal Pictures, who created this film, actually kind of, I guess, made it into a sequel from
Mhm.
1932. So, 10 years later. However, the actual movie takes place in Paris in 1889, which I was very surprised that they moved up that so much. And so our Dupin here was seemed a lot younger than the
Yeah.
Dupin of Leon Ames in Murders in the Rue Morgue. But they were both named Pierre, so that makes sense that this was kind of a sequel.
Well, I guess you could call it that,
Right,
but
right. Because if you remember in Murders in the Rue Morgue, Leon Ames' character of Dupin, he was going to medical school, or he was working towards becoming a doctor. I think he might have been done with medical school. Now he is a full doctor.
well, and also if I remember from the movie, he was also writing a medical book
I think you're right.
because
Yes.
in the movie they do mention about his long list of achievements,
Hmm.
which is writing a medical book
Yeah.
and everything. And they make it, he's got his own laboratory,
Hmm.
and everything. So they make him very scientific and very smart.
Hmm.
And that's about the only smart thing about the movie. But,
Yes. Well,
um,
it was
yeah.
directed by Phil Rosen, and he began his career as a cameraman in the silent era, and apparently very well respected with his work. And
Uh-huh.
so, but some of the movies that he directed were It Could Happen to You in 1937. And let's see, looking at things that I recognize, Double Alibi in 1940. He also did The Secret of St. Ives in 1949, Sins of the Father in 1948. So he also did some of the Charlie Chaplin movies too, or I'm sorry, Charlie Chan movies as well.
Yeah.
He
I
directed.
thought I recognized him,
Yeah.
his
And
name and
so,
stuff.
and I would think that probably is more of his notoriety than this film, if I would have to
Uh,
guess.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I will say though, the cinematography, it was more expected. I'll say that
Hmm.
because they kept it very standard and stationary with just particular spots.
Hmm.
Because you could tell it was very much a Hollywood set.
Yes. Hmm.
And the one, okay, I won't get too far ahead, but the costumes and those types of things, the setting and everything were very well done. I will say that.
I totally agree. I thought the lighting was very well done, especially with having some settings of what appeared to be outside with,
Hmm.
close to the river and things of that nature. But yeah, and the costumes were fantastic.
Yeah. It Now, I will start off by saying that the cast, for the most part, were very fitting to the roles.
Hmm.
Because they chose, as you can see from your background, the choice for Marie Roget, they made her very much fit with the story that was written for this. Now,
Absolutely.
I do want to start off saying they actually say Edgar Allan Poe's The Mystery of Marie Roget,
Right.
but that's the only thing that comes close to being anything Edgar Allan Poe is
Besides
just
the
his
name
name.
Dupin, yes,
Yeah,
and Marie
but
Roget.
not even the
Yes.
full thing, just the last name, Dupin. And
Yes.
all actually, because there's no C. Now, if they had just, taken the C and maybe use Charles Dupin,
Hmm.
that would have been okay because, it was C. Auguste Dupin. But
Right.
Pierre, seriously? No. Pierre's not even Edgar Allan Poe.
Hmm.
Um, and then the poor prefect, the guy in charge of the gendarme, he was an idiot.
It was. Now to give a little bit of credence to them, Poe also made the prefects the kind of a bumbling police people.
But here's the thing, in the movie, he actually tried to be very good at his job. He
Yes.
tried to do his job,
Hmm.
but he was being made to look like an idiot by everybody else.
Absolutely.
So
Yes.
that's the one difference that I will give. Whereas Poe, he created that satirical type of uh, person
Hmm.
in the story.
Yeah.
But here it was where the prefect was trying to do his job, trying to be the type of person that needed to, and was the perfect example of someone who was put in that position. But it's like everybody else around him
Hmm.
was turning him into the idiot.
Yeah, and he ended up being Dupin's sidekick, where
Mm-hmm.
there was not an unnamed narrator or a different character playing that role. So the prefect became that, wherein the other, like this Dupin story and the other two, the narrator was present, but you had no idea who he was. And
Right.
and the prefect was only around for very short, periods of time and almost absent in a way.
Yeah, and here's the thing about this one. This is the one thing that really, well, it's not the only thing, but it was the first thing that really ticked me off
Hmm.
was this was more of a Sherlock Holmes than it was an Edgar Allan Poe.
I can see that.
Because if
Yeah.
you think about it, with Arthur Conan Doyle, the the police, or because it was in London, Britain, they weren't called prefects. I forgot what they're called, but the bobbies,
Hmm.
because they were, yeah. the Bobby was always the idiot
Mm-hmm.
that Sherlock Holmes had to deal with. And so, you can always say that Conan Doyle kind of took that from Edgar Allan Poe with,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
and stuff. But that's the one thing about this movie is it had more of a feel of being something where they were trying to turn it into a Sherlock Holmes rather than the actual story of the Mystery of Marie Roget.
Mm-hmm.
And they were trying to use Dupin as a substitute for Sherlock Holmes because they were making him out like he was coming up with all these scientific breakthroughs, and he was being said to be, oh, thank you for your great work with, oh, you had to deal with the murders of the Rue Morgue, and
Well, but
all this
they
kind of
even
stuff.
they even brought up, or he brought up when they were talking about because there was the one body found before
Mm-hmm.
Marie Roget. We're not giving away any spoilers if you have read Poe's story. And
Right.
he talked about when they found Marie's body about how the sinking factor and air and floating and all of that. I thought that was really interesting that they added that scientific information in as early as 1942.
Right. They were adding in some very forensical
Yeah,
type of science, but some
yeah,
of it was so far afield
yeah.
that because it was like they were introducing some of the things that technically didn't come about for another 20 or 30 years.
Very true. Exactly.
Especially about how they identified the first body,
Mm-hmm.
and they even included Scotland Yard,
Right.
and though it was in France, even
Yes.
though I know Scotland Yard is the international police, but still,
Right. Yeah.
they were getting they were getting help from Scotland Yard, and they were getting results a lot quicker than you would. I was like, dude, are you like phoning it in or what? It's like, how are you
Oh,
getting all this forensic and it's only happening like within a couple days? This is not, this is not really real.
true. Well, let's talk about the cast just a little bit. Just not all of the cast, but some of the main
The
players.
main characters,
Yes.
yeah.
So the lady who played Marie Roget, her real name is Maria Montez, and Marie Roget was not just this cigar girl who
Mm-mm.
was well known because she worked in the cigar store, and people, especially with men, she was very popular and like that. But she was a musical comedy star, and when she was missing at the beginning of the movie, it was like, oh my gosh, we've got to find her. She's this big star. And then she appears after they found the body because they thought that maybe that first body was her. And so she has played in other movies during that time frame: Arabian Nights, Cobra Woman, Sudan, Siren of Atlantis. So really and truly, some of those action adventure movies of the 1940s is really what made her career, it looks like.
Yeah, and she definitely had that Hollywood glamour look about her for that
Absolutely.
time period. And I think that
Right.
helped,
Mm-hmm.
with her career.
Yeah, and that's her behind my head, and I think
Mhm.
that's kind of supposed to be on the movie poster for
Yeah, so it's
Jeannie's.
her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and she her accent I didn't care for. I think she was trying to be French, but like Jeannie and I were talking before we came on to review Morgue, that it sounded more Spanish than it did French.
Yeah, it's like she had this already had a Spanish accent, and then she was trying to do a French accent, and then there was like nothing coming out that sounded anything other than just horrible.
Yeah, absolutely. And so Dupin was played by Patrick Knowles, and his film career was a little bit more than hers. For
Mhm.
instance, he played Will Scarlet in The Adventures of Robin Hood with Errol Flynn. That was a
Mhm.
huge movie in 1938. He was also had a part Frank Andrews in The Wolf Man of 1941. He returned in Frankenstein Meets the Wolf Man, and he had a different character during that. And he was in Terror in the Wax Museum. And then he also did TV in the looks like late 60s and early 70s as well. So his career was a lot more prominent during that time frame.
Yeah, and he was very well, what's the word I want to look, versed as an actor in the movie.
I
He
think
was,
so.
yeah,
I thought he did, his acting abilities were pretty good.
his were very standout
Yes.
because you could tell that he really was embracing and embodying the character.
Hmm.
Now, he never even attempted to try any kind of accent.
No,
He
she,
was very much an American.
yes,
So,
and which he should have been French
yeah.
technically, but
Yeah.
so the one of the things that they changed for the movie, so from Poe's Story, Marie Roget lived with her mother, and I believe if I'm remembering correctly, her mother's name was either Cecile or Camille. I don't remember.
It was Cecile.
Yes,
I'm
that's what I
pretty
thought.
sure.
So this particular movie, they decided to stir it up a little bit, probably to add
Mhm.
more characters. So they gave Marie a sister named Camille, and the two
Stepsister.
do what now?
Stepsister.
Okay,
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah.
they were sisters.
No, no,
Okay,
at the very end, when the grandmother is talking about,
hmm,
which I won't discuss what they were talking about,
right.
but one of them referred to and said, your
I
stepsister.
missed that. Okay, I
Yeah.
missed that. But so the two young ladies lived with the
Hmm.
grandmother, and her
Hmm.
name was Cecile. So they took the mother out of the picture altogether. Now, this,
No, the sister's name was Camille.
yeah, I said that.
You said Cecile.
The grandmother is Cecile.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
There's way too many C's going on there.
yeah, I said that.
So grandmother is Cecile, the granddaughter is Camille.
Camille,
Good
yes.
God.
All right.
Okay.
So the grandmother was played by Maria Ospinskaya. And
Mhm.
if that name sounds familiar, she was in lots of movies during this time frame. One of the probably most known is 1941, The Wolf Man. She played Maliva, and she was the one that kind of very spooky and talking about the curse of the wolf man and things like that. But she was also in the very first version of the movie Love Affair with Charles Boyer and Irene Dunn.
Mhm.
And looking at some of the other movies she was in, A Kiss in the Dark with Jane Wyman. Let's see what else. Tarzan and the Amazons, Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. So she returned for that one. And so she was very prominent. Her voice is very distinctive. I really like her, and I was glad that she played the grandmother in this film. I thought she did a really good job as well.
Oh, she was the epitome of the stereotypical rich woman who controls everyone and
Yes,
demands everyone to do exactly what she says.
yes, absolutely. And she played it perfectly.
Exactly.
Yes. And then the love interest for some people in the movie, the character's name was Marcel, and the actor who played him was Edward Norris, and his resume is not as strong
Extensive.
prominent as like Patrick Knowles. But his some of the things he was known for was Decoy in 1946, Man with Two Lives in 1942, Jungle Queen in 1945. He did have a part in The Third Man, which is a huge film in 1963. And then he also did TV as well. And so,
Mhm.
I guess the last character we should probably talk about is Inspector Gobelin, played by Lloyd Kerrigan, who was the prefect.
Mhm.
And one of his major roles was in It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. He was the
Yep.
mayor. And then he was also in The Manchurian Candidate, The Chase, and then he also did TV as well. I'm just kind of reading some of the top things. So you had a very interesting cast. However, and I know Jeannie brought this up when we were talking, the writing was not as developed as it could have been. It was kind of lackluster, predictable, which sometimes is not a bad thing, but taking this from one Poe's second Dupin story, they
Mhm.
had lots of things to pull from. Now, even though Poe's The Mystery of Marie Roget is very technical, you still could have pulled some things out of that to create a script.
Well, and the problem being is that, The Mystery of Marie Roget by Edgar Allan Poe was based on an actual true event that was
Right.
taking place.
Exactly.
And this movie took like only a couple of things
Mm-hmm.
from the actual true nature of the story to put
Yeah.
in the writing. Like Marcel, right? That was his
Mhm.
name?
Yeah, and
Marcel.
he's the one
Yeah, the
behind him
guy
right
behind you.
there. Yes.
Yeah, Marcel. He was supposedly part of the Navy.
Yes.
So that was one of the things because in the true story of Marie Roget,
Hmm.
she had a beau that who
Yes.
was supposed to be a Navy man.
Hmm.
There was another character who was like the secretary of the Navy. Never understood how he came to be in this. Um, because he would just show up and then threaten to send him, send Marcel off on some adventure to keep him away from Marie. And
Right.
it's like, why? But it's like when the first body shows up, it's the Secretary of the Navy that is the one that was at the prefect's office demanding why after 10 days they had not found her. And
Right.
then all of a sudden, the body washes up. And so then they all go down to where the body's at. And then the Secretary of the Navy is the one identifying Marie Roget's body. I'm
Exactly.
like, what? Yeah.
It was convoluted. It really was.
And then he couldn't even correctly identify her because her face wasn't even it was been destroyed.
Exactly. And that is not in the Poe story or what really happened in real life to Mary Rogers.
Yeah, I mean the body of Mary Rogers was found, and yes, it was badly decomposed and everything, but her face hadn't been demolished or
Scratched off.
mutilated or
Yes.
so it's
Absolutely.
and then it just kept going because and then right after the body shows up that the Secretary of the Navy misidentifies, then they go to tell the grandmother that Marie Roget is dead, and then Marie Roget just politely walks into the room like, I don't
Like
know
she
what
had
you're talking
no,
about.
yeah, she had no idea of what happened. And in the original story or in real life, that did happen. That Mary Rogers, because, Poe changed the name to Marie Roget,
Mm-hmm.
changed it from basically
To
New York,
French
New
because he
Jersey,
based it in the setting,
right,
yeah.
into France. And she did go missing for a few days, and then she just shows back up and won't tell where she was, what she was doing, who she was with. And so I thought that was another nod to Poe.
Yeah. But that was only very minor
Absolutely.
because it,
Yes.
and then you bring in the granddaughter, Camille,
Hmm.
who is, looks up, apparently is like so enthralled that she's so happy that Marie is back because she was so worried and all
Yeah.
this kind of stuff. And so you're like, why? Why do we have the grandmother? Why do we have another person of Camille?
Right.
Because it's like, and then you have Marcel, who is, the boyfriend of Marie Roget,
Hmm.
but apparently, according to the story, is trying to uh get engaged to the Duke Camille.
Yes.
So you're like, oh,
You got a
Lord,
love triangle there.
yeah. And then it just keeps going downhill from there.
It
You
it
know,
it does. And for the time of the actual movie, it was right around an hour. I
hmm
I was kind of like I looked at my phone time, several times thinking, is it over? Is it almost?
because if you actually looked at the story being told, it could have been no longer than 15 minutes. The whole thing could have been told and been done in 15 minutes
If you
because
take out all of the extra things that may,
that's what I'm saying.
yeah, had
Yeah.
nothing to do. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. If you just cut out all the excess of crap that they stuck in there that had nothing to do with anything, had, no bearing on any of the story. And oh my goodness, I have to talk about the horrible, horrible surveillance where Dupin had apparently two gendarmes. They're supposed to be surveilling the Secretary of the Navy and
Yep.
Marcel. And
Yes.
then, so they got into the horse-drawn carriage because they were going to drop the Secretary of Navy at home, and then they were. But it was like, oh my God, how can you follow in a horse-drawn carriage on cobblestones and be discreet about it?
Yeah.
When they take off into the horse-drawn carriage, and then 2 seconds later, the gendarmes in the second horse-drawn carriage start following them.
I know. Oh, I know.
Not very discreet. And then of all things, and then it just hits me. They try to outrun them. They tell
Oh, I
the
know.
driver of the carriage, go faster, go faster. So it is like the slowest, you know, police chase I think I've ever seen in
Hmm.
my life, where you have one horse-drawn carriage being chased through the cobblestone streets of France,
Hmm.
Paris,
Right.
particularly, by
Right.
another horse-drawn carriage. And then, of course, you have this man who is carrying his product on the back of a wagon,
Hmm.
takes a corner and cuts off the police chasers
Yep.
and then causes an accident. So then they lose their query. And I'm like, oh my God, that was just the most anticlimactic, boring police chase I think I've ever seen on any kind of movie or television.
Well,
And that's saying a lot.
you knew what was going to happen. You knew that was going to happen. I mean, it was so predictable.
I know, and that's like, are you kidding me? And then when the gendarmes run into the laboratory to tell Dupin, who
Hmm.
Dupin is a scientist and not even a policeman,
Right.
the gendarmes are the ones that run in and say, "We lost them.
I
We
know.
lost them." You think? Oh, good God.
Oh,
I have to say that was one of the ones where I was like, are you kidding
well,
me?
at the,
So,
yeah, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say that was yet again one of the things that whole scene should
Hmm.
never have happened
It wasn't
because it
necessary.
just
Yeah.
felt like it was fuller.
Hmm.
Yeah. It was just
Well,
like, oh, look, this will be wonderful. Let's just stick it in the movie.
one of the other things that I was going to talk about was when at the fancy party for Marie, where
Oh.
she was going to sing, and we're not going to talk about that because
Mm-hmm.
her voice was dubbed by someone else singing. She actually did not sing herself.
Mm-hmm.
And Dupin and the prefect were outside on like a little balcony area, and they set their glasses down.
Uh-huh.
They were drinking a cocktail, champagne, or something like that. And they're talking, they're facing out where this ledge is right in front of them, not even like paying attention or anything. And all of a sudden, you see a hand that because they turn around, you see this hand come up over the ledge and pour something in Dupin's glass. And I kind of figured they were trying to get rid of him. But then the next thing you know, they take the vial and put it into the prefects as well. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And then, so the glasses are
Mm-hmm.
there, and then somebody comes in and calls to them to come back into the room. And I can't remember exactly, somebody had shown up or somebody went missing. That may have been the point that Marie was not in there, that she had gone outside. And then the hand basically takes the glasses.
Yes.
I
It's like they
and it's like,
poured
what?
something in it, but then they end up taking the glasses, and it's
Right,
like,
right. And so it's like, did they think they were going to
mhm.
be found out? And I was like, what did that really have a point? I get where they were going with it, but then it was mentioned at the end, but that someone saw this happening. But if somebody saw this happening, why didn't that person run out to the balcony and say, Dupine, Goblin, look, somebody's trying to poison you. None of that happened. It was a huge plot hole. I,
Not only that, but it made no sense
no, it
because
really,
why would you poison Dupin and the prefect?
right, exactly. I
Because
thought
I
it was
mean that would
unnecessary.
just put like this big glaring neon sign saying, okay. It's like, oh, and then the whole party situation was just irrelevant in my opinion
Yeah,
because the only thing that they could have used that for was to help show where Marcel and Marie
hmm,
were even, they were a couple
right.
that they were plotting behind the backs of everybody else, and you're
Mhm.
going, so you couldn't figure out a way to do this without making this weird, unnecessary party that
Yeah.
brought in more people that had no bearing on the plots whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the reason why they did it. It makes sense because then, the next thing they know, there's a scream that's heard out, on the
Mm-hmm.
grounds, and that's when they start running. They find a purse with, the initials MR, and then there's Marcel finds the handkerchief right at the wall ledge that would go over into the river. And so, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and it happened to be the stepsister Camille's
handkerchief.
handkerchief. So
Right.
it's like they were, yeah. So it's like, oh, let's put this here so then we can maybe cause her to be under suspicion for killing her sister. I'm
Exactly.
sorry.
Yeah.
Uh the,
It,
the just but that was just okay. I'm sorry. If you watch the movie and you see the stepsisters together, you're going to be like, "Are you kidding me?" Because there would be no way whatsoever that the younger sister, stepsister, could have taken the older stepsister and tossed her over the concrete wall into the river.
Exactly.
It
Exactly.
wouldn't have been.
Well, and
Oh, now we have to talk about. Wait a minute. Okay, go ahead. Sorry. I'll
well,
bring
and
it up when you're done.
to me, there was a lot of background knowledge they should have set up in making the movie maybe an hour and 20 minutes, hour and a half to show what how Marie felt about Camille, because you find this out after the fact, and it's just it's like it's anticlimactic, kind of like you described the other scene with the, the horse buggy scene. And it was just
Uh-huh.
like they missed a whole lot. The writer missed a whole lot of how they could have set up many things to help with explaining why things were the way they were.
Okay. Well, the one thing I was going to bring in that we have kind of glossed over
Hmm.
is talking about the first body being the mutilated face that
Yes.
they immediately brought in that it looked like an animal attack.
Yes. Yes.
And then we go to meet the grandmother who has a pet leopard, a
Yes.
leopard that's not even, doesn't have a collar, not even on a leash, just running around
Yep.
the house like nobody's business, this wild animal. And you're going, no,
Yeah.
no, this is
I
not, this is not murders in the Rue Morgue.
cat style.
Yeah. It's like, oh, let's bring this random cat in here. Like, first of all, and this just, in my opinion, was just a miss on the whole front because I know what they were doing with it because they
Yep.
were trying to make the grandmother be more eccentric and rich.
And
They were doing that whole
suspect.
thing
And a
by
suspect.
having her do what?
And a suspect.
And a suspect, yes, making her seem suspicious by having a leopard. And
I
I felt so sorry for this cat.
I know it was just so obvious the red herring that the leopard was. Sorry about
Mhm.
the, I guess kind of pun in a way. But I was just like, no,
Yes.
don't go this route. And then for her to donate it to the zoo later in the story because it scratched her hand, it was like it made no sense
Mhm.
at trying to do what they were doing to show, kind of cast again that red herring that she could be a suspect.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. It it made absolutely no connection whatsoever
No,
because the grandmother was in a wheelchair and had canes to walk with. So it's
exactly.
like you I mean, it would probably have worked if they made someone else an accomplice type of thing. And
Yes.
a little bit they tried to do that with the Secretary of Navy, but
Yes.
it was so horribly done and so horribly written that you're just going, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like,
It just seemed so disjointed with, let's throw cast suspicion on this person and this person, this person. Well, let's take this away, but let's add this new element to this person. It just made no sense. And then the other
yeah.
thing that I was like, this, it reminded me of Frankenstein, was the the shadowy figure going into the morgue to steal Marie's brain. That made no sense to me.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, I was like, are you what? Everything. You know, I couldn't even piece together what in the world that they were doing, because I'm like, this makes absolutely no sense. There is no plot. There
Right.
is no story connection. This was so disjointed from the very beginning
Mm-hmm.
all the way to the very end. And it was like, I, I, I honestly can tell you, it felt like I just wasted an hour of my life
Yeah,
because there was nothing redeemable whatsoever about this movie. Nothing.
I
And
know.
I felt so bad for Miss
Ospenskaya.
Openskaya.
Yes, Cecile.
Openskaya. Yeah. I felt so sorry for her because with her would famous, let's just say that, because she was one of the most famous actresses in the movie.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I felt bad for her because, and I hate to say it, but every actor and actress probably has that one movie that will haunt them for the rest of their days.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh
I felt
yeah.
like this would be that movie.
Yeah. I would totally agree with you. It did not. There's been other of the films we've reviewed that I was like, there's some quality elements to it, but didn't necessarily like
Redeeming quality,
totally,
yeah.
yeah, totally enjoy myself. But again, this just was not a good movie overall. And the thing that really bothered me
No,
too was that, Marie or Mary Rogers, the real case is a cold case. It's never been solved. And Poe's story,
correct.
Marie Roget, is a cold case, never been solved. He kept it true to
Yep,
form because,
exactly.
he set out, he hoped to solve it, but the police made some really bad decisions in how they handled things. And so evidence was not done properly. So, Poe obviously could not have solved it in that way. But this movie I knew would have the culprit that they caught, and they did. We're not going to reveal who it was because we'll save that, spoiler. And but the problem
Yeah, you have to watch it yourself.
but the problem with the whole thing, they didn't even really reveal why this person killed her. And so it's like, okay, you're going to add insult to injury. You're going to give us a killer, but you're not even going to say why. And I mean, we can make our inferences of why this person killed her, but in a movie, it needs
Hmm.
to be spelled out with the whole, Dupin explaining everything at the end. And I didn't
Yeah, and
know
the
that.
problem, yeah, and a problem storyline
Hmm.
is it was cliche and redundant plot line
Yeah.
put together, and it was done so horribly
Hmm.
that it's like they didn't even try.
No.
And I swear, I felt so bad for them having Edgar Allan Poe's name on this movie that
Yes.
I'm like, the poor man probably should be coming up from the grave to say, how the heck did you do this? You
Exactly.
know, you
Oh,
have like maybe two or three things that you can add to this story that I actually wrote, but the rest, please.
yeah. Oh, I
I
agree.
mean, the poor man should have been rolling over in whatever grave he was in at the time.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it was
Well,
just,
I
and
think
even the, like we were talking about, the poster on my picture. What the heck is the red phantom?
Phantom. It looks like the Red Death. It looks seriously looks like the Red Death.
Exactly. It just, there's like no point.
Nope. And that
Uh,
that sums up, I think, the whole movie. Your
yep.
last sentence.
Yep. There was no point.
So I guess, Jeannie,
Yeah.
it's time to give our Raven calls and Black Cat hisses.
Well, this will be easy.
Well, why don't you go
And I
first?
think this will be the worst thing. Okay. Well, even in any type of rating, there's always, if you got like a 5-star rating, there's either 1 star to 5 star.
Mm-hmm.
I swear, I am so close to being no Ravenclaws. No Ravenclaws whatsoever. I
Okay.
would give this movie.
Is that what you're going with?
It doesn't even, yes, it
Wow.
doesn't even register. There is zero, and I'm going to go to the max for the Black Cat hisses.
So six.
This, to my opinion, you know, so six, all six
Okay.
Black Cat hisses. It needs all six of them. First, for the atrociousness that they tried to leap upon the poor leopard.
Yes. I was just
Two,
say how ironic
for just, yes, exactly. How
this is.
ironic. I got to defend the cat here.
Oh,
But it, to me, is just, it was so derivative and just so bad and
yeah.
such, it was to me, it was such a spit upon on Edgar Allan Poe's story.
Yeah.
And not
It
only
was.
that, just it's so disrespectful to the true story of Mary Rogers.
Yeah. I agree.
I mean, I think if they could have if they could have done it correctly with the correct type of story
Mm-hmm.
and just made it to where it was, a little bit, it might have been some redeeming, but no, absolutely. To me, I can't get over it.
Okay.
Just,
That's,
it was so bad. It was so, so bad.
I mean, I kind of agree with you. However, I am going to give it one Raven call only because the costumes were amazing. The
Mhm.
not the cinematography, but the setting. I really liked the setting that they used, and some of the actors' quality of work delivering very poor writing, like Ospenskaya, Patrick Knowles. I will give it a one. So,
Okay.
but I'm also agreeing with you that it deserves the full gamut of hisses. Taking the leopard with the black cat and having a cat fight out
Exactly.
with everything we've said. I
Just
don't even
like
think
it
I
needs the
need to
full cat
explain.
fight.
Yes,
Claws out.
it does. Yes. Yes, claw.
No.
Absolutely.
Yeah, claws out.
Yes. And once we
Claws and hisses.
finish this episode, I do not want to go back to this movie again.
No. No, this is one I will happily say that I will never ever want to even adventure a thought about.
Yeah, I agree. So, to our listeners and viewers, we hope you will take our opinions into account. And, it's always good, as we always say, to go out and watch things for yourselves. And if you do
Hmm.
that, please, if you disagree with us, definitely let us know. I mean, You know, the
Yeah.
everyone's different, and you may find something redeeming more than we did.
Yeah. I mean, because everybody can see things differently.
Hmm.
So that's
Absolutely.
okay.
Yeah.
And this
So
is just our own opinion. This is just our opinion. Let
absolutely.
me emphasize this is just our opinion.
Yes. And so
So,
with kind of we're ending that film and moving on. But just a few things to remember for our listeners and viewers. Doomsday, May 17th, is coming up from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. It will be on our YouTube channel. Jeanie, our YouTube channel is?
yes, it is at Unplugged 3978.
Yes. So we will be
And
live.
you can log in, subscribe,
Mhm.
and yes.
Yes. Yes. Please subscribe if you haven't already. You can watch it without subscribing, but it would help us so much if you would subscribe and like what we do if you like it. And then we also have our our third annual Poet Like Poe poetry contest. Go to our website, 6degreesofpoe.com, and find the tab for the contest and read the guidelines and submit your poem. You have until May 15th. So please do that. We've already received several entries, and our judges are going to be ready on May 16th to start looking and categorizing who won first, second, third, and honorable mentions. If you're 11 to 17, please choose the youth category. If you're 18 and above, choose the adult category. And I think, Jeanie, is that
We look
every?
forward to having you enter.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep, that's good for me.
All right. Well, thank you for listening to our rant about this movie. And
Yeah.
on that note, Jeanie,
Yes.
we
We are
are po.
our Poe